the event in my childhood that really connects back to what I do as the mad scientist of multifamily was that when I was, I think it was 9 or 10, um, the I was diagnosed as borderline autistic because, firstly, my family noted that I had amazing math skills, so I would basically solve math sums in my head. And then I was very non-social. So I was a withdrawn child. I'd basically look at things and say things that people would find odd. So I'd look at like a row of numbers and basically start tying that back to, you know, be back to the age of a tree, or the clouds in the sky. Basically, I could see patterns in everything.
Mm.
And so they took my dad was a fighter pilot, so they took me to the VA hospital in India, and there was a psychologist, and he basically went through this process with me for a while, and that fixed the problem. That ability to see patterns in numbers, it stayed with me, even though they managed to fix my grumpiness and the fact that I was antisocial. They fixed that, but the numbers ability stayed. And so throughout my life, I don't think that I've been a technologist. I don't think that I've been a real estate tycoon. I think I've always been a person that is in love with the power of numbers. And that, drove me into my technology career when I was basically doing large network rollouts in the Bay Area for companies like Cisco, where we are basically, plugging terabytes of data through these big pipes. A lot of that was math, right? So there was an incredible amount of math to do there. And then when I became chief operations officer of the company that I was working for, I was extremely math and data driven. So the company really ran by the numbers, and we ran that company for about 14 years, had a tremendous, phenomenal, very profitable exit to that. We sold to a private equity group in 2013. And my real estate career, I tell people this often, and sometimes it sounds a little flippant to say this, but it's really not. I tell people I'm running a data analytics company that is masquerading as a real estate company, right? Now, as it
Mm-hmm.
happens, what I'm doing that with at the moment is real estate. 5 years from now or 10 years now, I could be doing the same thing with a different career. So the approach that I take is not of technology, but it is of numbers, right? And as it happens, there's a lot of room for numbers people in the technology side, and there's a lot of room for numbers people on the real estate side. I do feel that there's not enough real estate people that are as numbers driven as they should be, but I think that there's a lot of room there to optimize and grow your portfolio or your company if you're doing that way. So no, not a technologist, more a math geeks, right? So I tell people, you can call me a geek, a nerd, or a dork, and I'll take all of those as compliments. Keep Multifamily U pretty tight. I love teaching. My wife's a teacher, mother-in-law's a teacher, father-in-law's a teacher, sister-in-law's a teacher, my mom's a teacher. So I come from a family of educators. So teaching is in my blood. It makes no financial sense for us to basically teach through Multifamily U because we could make a lot more money with
Mm.
our projects, but education is part of the process. So we do a lot of educations. Multifamily U gets about 50,000 visitors a year, and about 10, 12,000 of them attend our webinars. That's where I publish my list of cities.
Go.
The city list, we tell
Mm-hmm.
people, I mean, these are places you can go buy, do
Okay.
stuff on your own, right? And
Okay.
here's
Okay.
a toolkit that tells you how good the city is. Even if you don't like, my rankings, you can basically take the toolkit and apply it to whatever your cities are, and you never have to come back and talk to me. The toolkit updates each year in January. So we don't try to push an investor towards being passive, towards being active. They're either syndicators or wannabe syndicators,
Mm-hmm.
and that community is mostly addressed through our boot camp. So we teach the boot camp 4 times a year. We have astonishing reviews on the boot camp. It's about a 15th of the cost of other programs in the industry. And we keep it that
Mm-hmm.
low because we feel like there should be a lower cost option. And it's a very technology driven boot camp. It's about $3,000, and we teach it 4 times a year.
Okay.
Um, but everything else is really implementation. We do not like being called educators. We like being called
Mm-hmm.
implementers, right? With 18 active projects, we're pretty busy.
Mm.
Once I went to Madeira. So I subsequently went to Chicago and basically just bought there because I knew somebody, I was connected with somebody. Basically, I did the non-data driven thing right after doing the data driven thing. And as you can
Mhm.
imagine, I got my ass kicked. I didn't lose any money because the market was going up, but I didn't make any money, and it took a long time to divest that portion of the portfolio. It was a nightmare. So I
Okay.
think what I really learned was that the path of data was always
Mhm.
the right path. It's something that I'm schooled in. I have a degree in that area. It's a computer science degree, but there's an analytics specialization that I have. My head filled with my ego, thinking that somehow the magic was inside of me, that I got my butt kicked. When I came back to, I don't know shit. Let's just follow what the data does, and that's what's going to really, the data knows what it's doing, right? I'm just following it. And so
Mhm.
when I came back to it, we started experiencing tremendous success. I mean, we have projects in markets that people would kill for, right? Places like Jacksonville, Phoenix. I mean, these are markets that today everybody loves them, but obviously it's too late today, right? We're selling another one. We're selling in Jacksonville. So the time to go to these markets was 2 or 3 years ago. Today it's kind of late to go into a market like Phoenix, and that's because the data gives you that 2 or 3 year advantage. I tell people I can actually see the future 24 months in
Mhm.
advance. And when people ask me, how do you see that future? My answer is, I look at single family prices. And they're like, yeah, but you're a multifamily guy. The answer is, if single family prices in a market are going crazy, then each month a certain percentage of people buying homes will no longer be able to afford them. I follow the single family market with an absolute obsession. At any given point in
Hmm.
time, you can ask me what are the top growing markets. I can tell you, far and away the highest home price increases in the next year are in Idaho Falls, Idaho, but there's a few other markets, Raleigh, Durham. Durham is probably better than Raleigh. Raleigh and Durham's about 20 minutes away from Raleigh. So I follow that data, and then I go out and either build there. I'm just
Mhm.
finishing construction in Durham because I noticed that Raleigh was becoming so expensive that Durham, which is 25 minutes away, the land was still cheap. I built 46 townhomes that I'm now selling, and they're just selling like hotcakes. I mean, we don't have a demo unit to show. We haven't finished construction. Data tells you all of these things. It tells you where to go. I just feel like a lot of people talk about data, but they don't really make it part of their process. And so my next mistake was that I selected the wrong partner for a particular project. So,
Hmm.
a lot of people say things like, when selecting partners, make sure first you look at ethics, right? The partner should be ethical, they should really care, all of that stuff. The truth is, you first have to validate their competency and then make sure that they're ethical. So the mistake that I made was I fell in love with a person because their ethics were above reproach, but I didn't really check to see if they were fully competent. I think they were people trying to do the right thing. Their heart was in the right place, but I think that they got in over their head, and we had a project that went poorly because of that. So what I learned actually was, when selecting partners is one of the most important things you'll do in real estate, because most projects, I mean, I'm now at the point that I'm doing projects with no partners, but
Mhm.
I did 15, 16 projects involving partners. What I learned was, you cannot check one of the two boxes. Very competent, not enough. Ethical, not enough. They have to be both ethical and competent. And that's something that data cannot really get you anywhere close. So I really learned to stretch out the initial engagement process with a partner and
Mhm.
listen to my gut feel, because whenever I didn't, it didn't work out well for me. So I've become very good at walking away from projects because I felt like either there's an issue on the ethics side or an issue on the competency side. A lot of people just jump into bed with somebody based on 1 or 2 meetings. I don't do that anymore.
Hmm.
I think that understanding that the world today, as it stands today, is biased against you becoming rich. And by rich, I mean becoming truly wealthy, having control of your time. We've got a financial system where people go to school and are basically brainwashed into becoming W 2 employees. And the truth is, given the astonishing riches of the internet, the ability to work from anywhere, I mean, I remember 20 years ago, setting up a business meant that in addition to being a employer, you also had to be like a server management manager, because you had to set up a server and file systems, and you had to set up, email systems. Today, life is really, really simple. Everything's in the cloud, right? And you can do astonishingly powerful things for one fifth of the price that it cost in the 80s. So
Right.
the business environment actually is very supportive for people to go on their own, but less and less people are doing it. And that's because we're brainwashed that the path of the W2 is better. I believe that there's very, very few W2 people that are actually happy with their life, that are content with their life, because in the back of their mind, there's always this fear of losing that W2 job. To me, I think that the path to becoming successful goes towards you moving towards financial independence. I think what is important is that every person who wants lasting happiness needs to start in some tiny way towards financial independence. If you do not have financial independence, the goal that you can set just so that you get started on is, I'm going to create $100 a month of revenue that comes without me working for it. 100 a month. Nothing huge, nothing massive. Because I think that the act of you doing the 100 is going to change rewire your brain. And you will very naturally say, okay, now I want to set a new goal for 1,000 a month, right? I think that most people don't understand that it doesn't matter if you make $500,000 as a technologist or $1 million as a doctor. You are not independent. You don't have freedom. You are all that's happened is you're now a rat running in a gilded cage. It's a gold
Right.
cage. $1 million doctor and a $25,000 a year receptionist are in the same exact cage. I think that the key to freedom, the key to growth, is understanding that there's no difference in the cage. Part of it is that somehow society has brainwashed us into feeling guilty when we have free time. When we don't work 50-hour weeks, we feel bad. Did Moses have an 11th commandment that broke off the tablet that says, Thou shalt work 50 hours? God never said that. God never had an issue with people working less. I think that we brainwashed ourselves into it. We feel this guilt. A lot of people don't start on this journey because they're almost afraid of their own success, because they're like, so I'll end up working 20 hours a week? Oh my God, that's horrible. People say all these kinds of nonsensical things to you like retirement is no fun. No, there's no nobody has to retire. If you had financial freedom, most people would discover that they still want to work. I
Right.
tried to retire for 3 full months in 2013. First month was awesome. Second month was okay. Third month, I was ready to kill myself. But the point is, happiness doesn't come from retirement. Comes from the option of being able to retire, right? That's what creates happiness. That pressure on your mind of your W-2 job just goes away forever. And I think that's what the goal is. I tell my kids that the goal of life is just happiness. There's no other word. You just have to pursue it. And I don't think a W-2 job gets you there. I think it gets you closer, especially if you have a technology job, you're a doctor. The path to happiness is faster. But to think that it is happiness is nonsensical.